And one of the things that happens that I see causing a lot of stress with people is noticing places where the numbers on your taxes do not completely line up with your bookkeeping. And I'm here to just bring you some peace of mind because that's actually normal and there's nothing wrong with you if that happens. Welcome to the Sunlight Podcast. In this show, we're talking about taxes, money, and careers for self-employed people who have a big vision for changing the world with their work. I'm your host, Hannah Cole, artist, tax pro, and the founder of Sunlight Tax. If you're a creative or soul-centered entrepreneur or wellness practitioner who wants to grow your business sustainably, manage your taxes, and build a stash of fuck you money so you can control your time and have a bigger impact with your work, you are in the right place. Hello. Today on the Sunlight Tax podcast, I want to talk to you about something that I see really causing a lot of confusion, especially as we're in that time of year when you are gathering together the last of your bookkeeping from 2024 and converting that into your taxes for 2024, right? Where you're starting to prepare your taxes and use the work you've done throughout the year in your books to figure out what you owe for 2024 by the tax deadline. And one of the things that happens that I see causing a lot of stress with people is noticing places where the numbers on your taxes do not completely line up with your bookkeeping. And I'm here to just bring you some peace of mind because that's actually normal and there's nothing wrong with you if that happens. And I want to talk a little bit about a couple key areas where it happens and why, and what, if anything, you need to do about it. All right, so let's get started. Today, the one that I want to bring up is probably the most complex of all of them. It is your home office or home studio. All right. So just for the background on this, the basics of taking a deduction for your home office or home studio are that the IRS allows you to deduct the cost of a workplace for your business. All right. Now, this would be true if you were renting an office space or a studio space outside your home. But it's also true if you choose to work inside your home and use a space inside that home exclusively for the purpose of doing your work. Now, that's really important. This can't be a multi-purpose room. It can't be your dining room table. It's got to be a room that is dedicated as your office space. All right. And that's only fair because you would not be allowed to deduct a rental outside your home if it wasn't exclusively for the purposes of your office or studio. All right. So it's okay to subdivide a larger room. You can have some tape, a bookshelf, some kind of clear delineation or marker that shows that you are only using the square footage that's a subset of a room. That's completely fine. And I used to come up with that question all the time when I had clients in New York City who might be working in a big loft space that the whole apartment was one big room, right? So it's okay to use a portion, but you do have to be clear which is the exclusively used for business portion. All right. All right. So how does it work? One of the things that you probably have heard me say before, if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, is that you need to have a separate business bank account and from your personal accounts, right? This is one of the markers of having a genuine business and therefore, having your deductions be valid. That is a business-like practice that you want to uphold. And yet the expenses of your home office or home studio generally are going to be paid out of your personal account. And that's actually right. That's correct, right? That's how you should be doing it. You pay your rent out of your personal account because rent is a personal expense. All right. Now, yes, the tricky thing here is that a little portion of that is going to be deductible because of this home office deduction. But that doesn't mean you're going to write two checks to the landlord, one for the portion of your home that is all personal and a separate check for the home office. Oh my goodness, no, what a mess. We don't want to do that. You're just going to be paying out of one account. All right. So you don't have to be worried about that. But what it does mean is that if you do your bookkeeping from your business bank account, which is how most people do it, how I would recommend doing it, you're not actually going to see that portion of those expenses showing up on your business bank statement, right? So this is just a little tip off that your bookkeeping and your taxes here are not going to align perfectly. And here's the thing, it's totally okay. This is actually a normal and expected thing, and it's perfectly fine. All right. So your utilities, your, house cleaning, if you pay for that, your rent, your mortgage, these are personal expenses, but a little portion of them you are going to get to take for that home office, home studio expense. All right. Now, the good news is you really don't need to worry about this on a day-to-day level. Okay. If you are a person who works for themselves, you're self-employed, you are filing on a Schedule C, right? Your business expenses are going in a Schedule C. There's a place for you to put your home office expenses on that. And I just want you to recognize that that may never show up at all in your bookkeeping, and it's okay. So one of the things you need to do to take the home office deduction is the following. You are going to take a measurement of your entire livable space. So your whole apartment, your whole home, right? This is often a number that's available to you even in like your mortgage or deed, like documents, or in your rental agreement. Like you probably already have access to this number without getting out a tape measure. And then you want a second number, which is what is the exclusively used office space, right? What is the office portion or studio portion of that space? For this one, generally, you do need a tape measure. So just get out a tape measure and measure the room that you are working in for your home office or home studio, all right? And what that gives you is a ratio. So now you're going to see you've got, for example, if I have a 1,000 square foot apartment and there's 4 equal sized rooms, and one of those rooms is my home studio, then 250 square feet out of 1,000 is a deductible workplace. So for my indirect expenses of that home office, I'm going to write down on my tax return that ratio of the exclusive use space to the total property. All right. And then just so that you know, and you don't even have to do this calculation yourself. Generally speaking, you're going to be entering these numbers into tax software and it will do the calculation for you. But just so that you understand what's happening in the background, what's going to go on here is you are going to then enter in the expenses of living in that space, and that proportion will get applied to those expenses, and that proportional amount will be deducted as an indirect expense of your home office. So for example, my utilities, my rent, if I have a housekeeper or any other expense that applies to the whole residence, then those I will list on my tax return for the purposes of that home office deduction. And in my example of the 25% ratio, then 25% of those total expenses will become deductible as my home studio. All right. And this is not something that will ever be shown in my bookkeeping. Okay. So that's okay. You're not doing anything wrong. I just want to call some attention to that fact because a lot of times people think that they've done something wrong when they look at their bookkeeping and those numbers don't match up to the tax return. So I'm just here as the tax expert to give you a little peace of mind and assure you that you're not doing anything wrong. And there's one more little wrinkle when it comes to the home office or home studio deduction, where there may be additional expenses of that space that are called direct expenses, right? So if you do anything that you only pay for that studio, that would just become a 100% deductible expense of the space. For example, if I have a home studio and I hire a professional painter to paint the inside of it, right? Or do some carpentry to build a wall inside that room, or, special lighting, or if it's a podcast studio, maybe put soundproofing in there. Those would be considered direct expenses and you get to take the whole thing. You don't have to apply that proportion, right? That's only for expenses that are for the whole home, the whole living space. All right, great. Lastly, I also want to warn you that these expenses are not going to show up in your bookkeeping, but they're also not something you need to worry about when it comes to making your estimated quarterly tax payments. So just think of tax time as the time that you get every last deduction, you figure out every last little dollar, The tax return is the place where you actually do all the calculations to reconcile what you prepaid in taxes through the year with what you actually end up owing when all is said and done, right? And the good news is you don't do 4 tax returns a year if you're paying estimated quarterly taxes. I think people fear that this is true, and it's not. Quarterly taxes are only a payment. That's it. Only a payment. There's no tax return. And so it really is okay to be estimating when you make your estimated quarterly tax payments. It's right there in the title. But these really are estimates, and you do not need to get so nitty-gritty and fine-grained that you're taking a quarter of your home office expense at estimated quarterly tax time. You can just do a calculation off what is in your books. We're going to call that close enough. And that word estimate in the title, estimated quarterly taxes, that's there to say close enough is just fine. All right. So I really hope that this episode gives you some peace of mind and stops you worrying about a thing that I see a lot of people worrying about. Honestly, I think you're probably doing a great job already. If this episode has helped you in any way, I hope you share it with a friend, or if you have a friend who's been stressing about a home studio or understanding the difference between their quarterly payments versus their annual tax filing, maybe send this episode to them. It's really helpful to me, and I'm very grateful for it. All right. I hope that gave you some peace of mind, and I will see you on the next one. Bye. Thank you for listening. If you like the show, be sure to subscribe, leave a review. It really helps, and share it with a friend. I'm so grateful. This podcast is for education and entertainment only. Nothing in this episode should be taken as individual tax or financial advice. You can find all the tools, books, and links we reference at sunlighttax.com/podcast.